Hello, everyone, and welcome to our GPAC Live Talkback Thursday. I'm Amy Miller, Director of Programming and Education here at the J. and Susie Gooch Performing Arts Center at Auburn University. Thrilled to have our guest artist here, Eric Essix. Hey.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so good to have you here. For everyone that's joining in with us today, Eric Essix is here from Birmingham, and he's part of our GPAC Live Alabama Artist Series and is performing tonight on our stage at 7:30 with your band. So we're excited to have you here. Yeah, and I'm going to Yeah, they just arrived about 2 hours ago, loaded in, and we're going to have sound check this afternoon and get to playing this evening. So
there you go.
Yeah. So I'm going to give just a quick intro about Eric, just so that we all know who we're meeting with here today, and then we'll dig into conversation. Okay.
Very cool.
So thanks, everyone. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you're joining us and you have not registered for this evening's performance, it's at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, and you can go to our Gooch Center website to register for tickets. It's free. You can join us from the comfort of your home. Tickets are at goochcentertickets.auburn.edu. So Eric Essix is the third artist of our Alabama Artist Series this fall. He is a jazz guitarist from Birmingham, Alabama, who has toured the globe and has quite the prolific recording history. He has 25 full-length albums to his name that he's written, he's arranged, recorded, and released over the past 30 years. His latest, Songs from the Deep, revisits his favorite theme of being from Birmingham, Alabama, and his Southern roots. And Eric is also an educator. He's taught and mentored many students over his career. He's also a presenter in our field. He is the Director of Programming at the Alice Stevens Center at UAB, our sister performing arts center in Alabama. So you wear various hats, and we're excited to have you here performing with us tonight.
Well, performing is of course my favorite hat to wear. So it's a pleasure to be here in this very, very beautiful venue. If you out there haven't been to see this place, it's amazing. And it's just a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's great. We were just talking before this that you had come with the Alice Stevens Center staff about a year ago, a little over that. So you thought before we opened, and now you're here to play. So
yeah. It's amazing, the transformation and the evolution of this center. It's really a very beautiful place.
Yeah, we're excited for you to hear this evening, even though there won't be too many people in the audience for you. Hopefully down the road we can shift that and invite you back with a full house.
That's fine. We'll play with the same energy for a small crowd that was jam-packed in here. So
there you go. So good. So good. So inviting you onto this series was very meaningful for us to have you here, coming down from Birmingham. For all of you that are tuning in, Birmingham is about a 2-hour drive north of Auburn University, which is in eastern Alabama. And Birmingham, the largest town in Alabama, has an extraordinary special history that many of us are aware of. And Eric, you've been a resident and a resident artist through so much of that history. So having been birthed and born up and made a career and a life in Alabama and in Birmingham, wondering if you can touch on what it means to be an artist that's rooted here in Alabama.
Yeah, I think that Alabama has an incredible history of amazing artists, of which I am just honored and humbled to be a part of this legacy of great music in the state of Alabama, starting with my gospel roots and up until now, and just meeting so many incredible musicians in the Muscle Shoals area, and even in Birmingham, there's just a ton of amazing musicians. So to be a part of this family and this legacy of very talented individuals that live and reside here is just an amazing thing. I never take it for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's partially what we're trying to do with this series, is just give a little bit of a snapshot as to the incredible vibrancy and talent. And so many people around our country, around the world, really understand Alabama and Birmingham specifically as the epicenter of the civil rights movement. And that's the kind of the capsule that oftentimes the state and Birmingham has stayed within, right? From an outside view. You and I have chatted about that
Yeah.
in the past years. I'm wondering what it means also to be able to, there's so much that you've taken from the state, so much that you've taken for your music, or you've honored, and so many tributes to incredible civil rights leaders and activists that you've incorporated into your work. What has that meant to have Birmingham kind of as somewhat of your artistic inspiration as well?
Yeah, I've never shied away from our history. It's a complicated history. And a lot of times people, when they think about Birmingham, when they think about Alabama, the first thing that they go to is that very, very tumultuous period in our history. And that's part of our legacy in this state, unfortunately. But rather than shy away from it, I've always embraced it in a way, because I think that it shows strength. It shows healing and reconciliation, compassion in a lot of ways. You know, when you go through some of the things that we have gone through in this state, it brings out, I think, in a very odd way, a sense of kinship with that history. Those of us who have tried to make Alabama and Birmingham a better place. And so I think in order to do that, you really kind of have to embrace the things that have happened here and strive for change and strive for that healing and that reconciliation. My way of doing that has been through music. You know, I've tried to write about it. I talk about it a lot. In some of the educational things that I do around the state, you know, I try to present the music of the civil rights movement that was key to the movement to young people, so that it gives us a platform to talk about it in a way that maybe people haven't talked about it before, you know. So there's a lot to embrace and a lot to tackle within that very, very complicated history. But I think the citizens of Birmingham, the citizens of Alabama have done an amazing job of that, and we continue to all grow and heal.
Yeah, and there's so many pieces of that story, and so many different narratives that can be told, right? And it's been fun to listen and to see the trajectory of albums and projects and collaborations that you've really allowed to shine in different ways, different stories from Alabama, different stories from your time in this.
Yeah.
Can you tell us?
A lot of music too. You know, when I was growing up in Birmingham, there was so much music from so many different genres to pull from, and that influenced me and had an impact on me as a musician, as an artist. At the time, I didn't realize it, but when I began to write music and began to compose and arrange music and play music from different genres, I would always get feedback from people about the soulfulness that came from my playing and being a part of the South. And I knew that it was just the whole gospel blues influences that I've grown up with. And it's just it becomes a part of who you are when you live and grow up in this state and in the city of Birmingham and coming out of church, you know?
Yeah. You started in the church. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Tell our audience a bit about that.
Yeah. Most of the guys in my band all started playing in church, you know? It's a breeding ground of sorts for musicians who may not have a place to an outlet, you know. As young musicians, you can always count on the church, you know, to give you a platform and a place to play and a place to develop. And I was one of those artists. I love the guitar, and you know, it's interesting that also in church, you know, they want you to stay away from playing the blues and all this kind of stuff, you know, and stay away from secular music, not realizing that gospel music is based in the blues. And I didn't discover that until, you know, I was much older. And I said, oh, these chord changes and progressions are a lot like the stuff that we played in church. Gospel music. So interestingly enough, I was already, you know, kind of groomed and had already kind of studied the blues from playing gospel music. So playing in church and growing up in that environment has been so helpful to me throughout my career and, evolving as an artist, as a musician.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had this Train, which is a gospel album, but
Yeah.
then you had other projects too that really showcase quite a bit of your spectrum of music and your influences.
Yeah. A very intentional album to explore that music, and not from necessarily a contemporary or a modern standpoint, but to actually go back and play some of that music the way it was played, when it was produced and when it came out. Just the traditional gospel feel and sound has never left me. And that album was more or less a tribute to that style of playing, that style of music, that style of composing. And it was, I have to say, the Gospel Sessions album is probably the record that I'm the most proud of. It's the album that has really centered me in a lot of ways. That project was so epic, in scope, with all the players, about 18 different musicians on that record, so many guest artists that really comprised not only, went all the way back, as to the roots of gospel music, with the Quilters of Gee's Bend and the Birmingham Sunlights, and Sister Rosanna Tharp, and encompassed kind of the arc from the beginning of gospel music to where we are kind of now.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a big project. I'm very proud of it.
Yes, you should be. Still one of my favorite albums. So
Yeah.
yeah. And it was very much, I look at it, Eric, as a bit of your spotlight of Alabama, and what the special talent and bravery and camaraderie that comes out of this state.
Yeah. I think just about everyone on that record is either currently living in the state of Alabama or born in the state of Alabama, with the exception of Kirk Whalum and his brother Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
So we really intentionally try to use Alabama artists who are invested in the state, invested in the history of the state, because I think that it brings a special kind of vibe and a special kind of energy to the music. When you're from here and everybody in the room is from Alabama, there's a camaraderie, a sense of togetherness, I think, just being all residents from the state, native to the state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And being native, you've also chosen to come back here time after time, right? So you went to Berkeley Music up in Boston for your degree, and you were away a few years, I believe.
Yeah, 3 years. Yeah.
And you came back to Birmingham. So you could have gone a lot of different places. You've toured all over the globe. You've toured all over the country. You've had different record deals and different projects come about, but you've stayed in Alabama. Can you speak to that and why that choice?
Yeah, when I was graduating from Berkeley, everyone at graduation time was thinking about, well, where am I going to go? Where am I going to land? At that time, Seattle was a very popular place. The music scene was growing there. Austin was another place that was, developing a really, really cool music scene. A lot of people were going there. Of course, there were a lot of guys who were thinking about New York and LA. And with my particular major, it did cross my mind to, wind up in maybe Los Angeles or New York and recording studios there. And something I can't really explain, what it was, just drew me home. I think I'd been away from home long enough. I think the 3 years in Boston just really made me appreciate the South and Birmingham and my roots a lot more. And I decided I'd come home, and I just never left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So for those of you that are just joining our conversation, thanks. This is GPAC Talkback Live. We're with Eric Essix, who's a prolific jazz guitarist from Birmingham, who's performing 7:30 tonight from the Waltos Theater on the Sergio Menendez stage tonight as part of our GPAC Live Alabama Artist Series. So we're just digging in, having fun talking about this great state of ours. And something that people do know about Alabama are the figures. We know Rosa Parks, we know MLK, we know Fred Shuttlesworth. Not everyone knows about Fred Shuttlesworth, but they should. John Lewis, just passing, and the whole globe mourned John Lewis, right?
Yes.
He was from this state and had iconic, horrific and powerful and moving history in the state. And you just wrote a song in tribute to him.
Yeah, actually, to Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth as well, who was one of my heroes of the civil rights movement. Often people think about Martin Luther King and Ralph Abernathy and some of the other great heroes of that movement. Fred Shuttlesworth was, to me, one of the most courageous members of that elite club of leaders, because he was fearless, And there was one instance during the integration of some of the schools in the Birmingham area where he tried to integrate, I think it was Phillips High School in Birmingham, or I think he was trying to get his daughter into school there, and suffered one of the most brutal attacks, in trying to do that. And my thinking after watching that footage was, what kind of strength, what kind of courage do you have to be able to do something like that? To put your body on the line, your life on the line for change, for that you may not even live to see. And it really had an impact on me. And so I got to meet him maybe, I guess, 15 years before he passed away. He was speaking in Birmingham. He had moved away to Ohio, I think, and was back to do a speaking engagement. And I had a chance to talk to him. And it was one of those moments, where you get to meet somebody that you really admire that really made an impact on me. So I wrote a song dedicated to him called Shuttlesworth Drive. And consequently, the only song that I've ever written that spent 7 weeks at #1 on the charts, 7 consecutive weeks. And I had to attribute it to him, that spirit of it,
It was a collaboration, Eric. It was meant to be heard, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then I got the call that he had passed away from his wife, and she asked me to play at his funeral. So I played Precious Lord, Take My Hand at his funeral. And it was one of the most emotional times that I've ever tried to, actually perform and then hold it together, for one of my heroes. So that was a really special place. That moment held a really special place. And then with Representative Lewis, I was working on this new album when he passed away. And I think it was the essay that he wrote, the last essay that he wrote, his final words, had made such an impact on me, where he talked about walking with the wind and continuing to stand for right. And so I wrote 2 songs about him, or dedicated to him, called Walk with the Wind, and the other one is Stand. And that's on the new record, Songs from the Deep. And just so many inspirational figures from this state. It's just a bounty of goodness to draw from when you're a composer or an artist.
Yes, wonderful. And then there's those that are still making their craft and singing, like the G's Ben Quilters, and who you worked with and lifted up their work. And Birmingham is a thriving, rapidly changing town too, with all sorts of artistic venues and places popping up every time I come and see again. And it's just fun. It's fun to see the shift. I'm very proud to be living in Alabama, and it's brilliant to see artists like yourself that have really been able to stay rooted here and for the better of the state. Very much so, yeah.
We're glad that you're here.
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks. For all of you that are joining in, Eric and I used to work together at the Alice Stevens Center. So we worked for 2.5 years together in Birmingham, and it's just been an honor to work with you, and now exciting to be presenting you and your work. And let's talk a little bit about this evening, because you have a wonderful array of musicians that are joining you tonight.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the band that will be joining me, that is supporting me this evening, are members of my touring ensemble that I've worked with, some of them for over 30 years. Kelly and Sean Michael Ray on bass, and Kelly O'Neill on saxophone were in my very first band back in 1988. The very first gig that I did as a solo artist, those guys were in my band, and have been mainstays in my band as charter members over more than 30 years. And James P.J. Spraggins is the drummer who's been with me for more than or almost 20 years. On keyboards is Wes Bird, who is the newest member of the group. We played together in many settings before. He's like the first call, in the highest demand as a musical director in the jazz world right now. So anytime I look over and see him on keyboards, I'm just honored that he's even on stage with me. He's in such demand. And we have a couple of special guest artists. Kim Scott from Birmingham, Alabama, who's an educator and amazing flutist. I think that's the right term. And she recently had a record that I played on that went two songs from the record went to #1 on the Billboard charts this year. So just an amazing career as a jazz artist, and just honored to have her on stage with us. And Leonard Julian is a vocalist from Atlanta, who will be joining us as well. So nice little addition to the core band, and we're looking forward to playing for everybody tonight.
Awesome, we're excited. And this is our celebration of the end of this semester, the end of the fall, and this series for this fall, but it's also a little bit of a holiday celebration as well.
Yes, it is. So we'll be performing some holiday music tonight as part of the set. And, you know, this is a special time of year, and everybody loves to play Christmas music. You know, it's just so much fun. You can do so much with those songs. And so we look forward to playing some holiday music for you all as well.
So good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, switching gears back a bit, tell us a little bit more about your album. So it was just released, beautiful. Been listening to it all week. And of course, you mentioned your influences for the album. What else should people know about? Will they be hearing any of that music tonight?
You know, maybe not tonight. We are still, because of the inability to rehearse, we are still just kind of becoming familiar with the new music, because I had to record this record and produce it remotely. So it's the first time I've ever done a record like this, where everybody that performed on it was in a different studio, in their own home studios or recording environments. And it was a little stressful at first because I've never done it, and I didn't know what to expect, but I should have known with the caliber of musicians that I called that it would wind up being just an amazing experience. And so because of that, we just haven't had time to get together and play this music and get it solid enough to present to people. But hopefully, you know, really soon we will. But we will be playing some stuff from some of the back catalog from some other records, and then some holiday music as well.
Oh, great. Yeah, understandably. So COVID is, I know that you really love being in the recording studio and the energy.
Yes.
You've recorded at Fame Studios and
Yes.
in Muscle Shoals a
Yeah.
few times.
Twice. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Really?
Southbound in 2000, we recorded at Fame, and then the Gospel Sessions album we recorded at Fame.
So great. Yeah, I was recently up there.
Oh, really?
And we read an article about it, and they had you as one of the highlights of the last year in recording.
Really?
Celebrating Eric and Roots with Fame. Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah, so great. I forgot to tell you that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm always struck by how you've done such a beautiful job of incorporating your voice and your influences, and how I can always hear Eric Essix and that sound, no matter what genre you're kind of pulling from within your albums. But then also really making sure to thematically, you know, ping your different albums. I know, remind me what the word is, a thematic album that you choose?
Yeah. And you asked me to dig in a little bit more about Songs from the Deep, and it's one of those records that has, it's a theme that I've kind of gone back to many times, being in the South, living in the South, growing up in the South, and particularly in Alabama. This record, after a departure of sorts over the past few records, I decided to come back to this theme and revisit it, because there's always so much richness to pull from. And, you know, as I've gotten as I matured as an artist, I'm kind of happy with the decision to explore this music in this context. At first, I had someone tell me, well, after 3 records of this, you should probably let it go, and do something different. I had someone at a record label tell me that. And I did for a while. I kind of, got away from the theme a little bit. And then I decided, there's so much here that I still have yet to explore. And so with Songs from the Deep, which is like Songs from the Deep South, I thought I'd go back and just touch on a few more moments, from my childhood and growing up, and from some of my heroes with this record. And we ended up with a spiritual. Most people who know me know that I love American Negro spirituals. It's my favorite, most elegant form of music ever. And you can do so much with those tunes or with those compositions. And so I ended the record with a really traditional spiritual called Hold On. And it has many names. In the past, I think it's also been known as Hold On to the Gospel Plow. And Hold On is like one of the names that the song has taken over the years. And I ended the record with that one. It's a really fun guitar, bass and drums trio song that I usually like to end up the records on a solemn, thoughtful note. So. Yeah, so drawing from all those experiences, just living and growing up here.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Our colleague Jonathan just asked, Songs from the Deep is an incredible album, start to finish. I agree. I'm sure each song holds a special place in your heart, but which are particularly significant? You've spoken about a few of them.
Yeah.
The others that you really enjoyed writing?
Yeah. So the single from the record is one called Late Night Drive. It's the very, very first song on the record. And that one holds a really special place in my memories of growing up in the city of Birmingham, because one of the things that we used to do for entertainment when I was a kid is my dad would pile everybody into the car and we'd drive around the city at night on the weekends, And after that, then we'd go to Burger King. That was like a big deal, So it was on one of those trips, though, driving around, that he put this 8-track in by Wes Montgomery called California Dreaming. And for some reason, I'd already been fascinated by the guitar. And I was about 8 years old at the time. And I don't know why that record just resonated with me for some reason. It was guitar, of course, but it was just really strange. I could remember songs from that record, even as I grew, into adulthood. I remembered every single note and actually recorded one of those songs that was on that record. And so that whole experience of being introduced to jazz in that late night drive with my dad and my mom and brother in the car was the inspiration behind that particular song. So that one, I think, and it's on the charts right now, doing really, really well. I think that one is probably right now my favorite one on the record, and has a really special meaning to me from growing up with that music and that experience.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, so good. Thanks for sharing that. Beautiful memory. Yeah. One of your songs that I oftentimes get it stuck in my head, or I think about the context of it, is Foot Soldiers.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just thinking about how it could even be that you take a bit of a stroll through your albums and you really learn quite a bit about this place that we live in, Alabama, Birmingham, the South, just through listening and reading about what you've chosen to write about and to showcase from the state. So thank you for that.
Yeah, the cool thing about that is I've learned that it gives me an opportunity when I'm out performing in different places to talk about that history, because Foot Soldiers was another one of those songs that went to #1 and a really, really popular single for me in my career. And so when I perform that song, and I perform it pretty much every time I play, do a concert. It gives me an opportunity to talk about Alabama and talk about those incredible
Mhm.
people who put their bodies and lives on the line, for freedom.
Mhm.
And so a byproduct of writing so much music about Alabama is I get an opportunity to talk about it, when I'm in different cities and different countries. And that's really kind of cool too.
Mhm, mhm. Ambassador.
Yeah.
This state. Alabama tourism, we should let them know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's another piece of it. You travel, you go and live somewhere else, but you're touring and representing as you're traveling and creating. So
That's right. Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
So good. Well, I would love to continue to talk as always, Eric, but we're gonna go get to the sound check, and then we'll be excited to have you on stage this evening at 7:30. So just a couple of things. I want to thank the Auburn Opelika Tourism for all of their great support around our GPAC Live series. Thanks everyone. And thanks to our colleagues who are getting everything ready. If you have not registered, we ideally would love for you to register by 4 p.m. today, Central Time. That helps us out. Go to goochcentertickets.auburn.edu to register for free tickets. Eric, we thank you for this engagement. For those of you tuning in that don't know, he will also be giving a school performance tomorrow morning, streaming it from our stage. So we just appreciate all that you're doing with us for this engagement.
And thank you so much for the opportunity. Everyone here has just been so kind. And, during these times when we don't have many opportunities to perform, to be able to come to such a beautiful venue and have these, opportunities to play and to talk about this music, it's been great. Thank you very much.
Of course. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Awesome conversation. Appreciate you so much. Tune in, everyone, 7:30 tonight. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Mhm.